If you ask people what they want most out of life, almost no one is going to give you the real answer. They'll give you the safe, acceptable words, right? Happiness, success, freedom, security, maybe even purpose. But beneath all of those incredibly polished, socially acceptable desires lies a psychological drive that is far older, far deeper, and honestly, it's a lot more unsettling. We tell ourselves we just want to be happy, but that's an illusion. What we really want, what is truly driving us beneath the surface, is something literally nobody wants to admit. Okay, let's dive into this. Beneath all of our safe desires lies a deeply uncomfortable need to have absolute control over the world around us. Now, when we hear the word power, we usually think of politicians, right? Or billionaires, or some kind of military conquest. But when you strip it all the way down to its psychological core, power is simply the ability to affect reality rather than merely react to it. It's the desperate desire to shape outcomes, to not be helpless. And this craving is quietly influencing almost every single decision you make, every single day, often completely hidden from your own awareness. So think about this for a second. We live in an age that constantly talks about equality. We celebrate it, we demand it. Yet if humans claim they value equality so deeply, why are we endlessly fascinated by hierarchy? Why do we obsess over celebrities, billionaires, and influencers? Why are we so powerfully drawn to the exact structures we claim to reject? Take a moment and just let that contradiction sink in.
Part 1. The hidden human desire.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that to understand this descent into our own psychology for this explainer, we actually have to travel far beyond modern society. We've got to look entirely past modern politics, money, and corporations, and essentially redefine what power actually is. Power is not necessarily domination. It's the fundamental human craving for significance. It's the desire to matter. Think about the last time you received genuine recognition, maybe a compliment from someone you really respect, an award, or even just a moment where a group of people stopped and listened carefully to what you had to say. That emotional rush you felt, that wasn't just happiness. That was your brain interpreting evidence that your actions have an impact. It was proof that you are visible.
Part 2. The ancient hierarchy machine.
Imagine an incredibly harsh, ancient world, long before cities, where a tiny group of early humans is surviving together. Resources are terribly scarce. In this environment, status wasn't a luxury. It was literally the only way to stay alive. Because status affected survival, the human brain evolved to pay close attention to it. I mean, very close attention. Because if you were ignored by the tribe, you died. If you were cast out, you died. Thousands of years later, you are still carrying this exact same ancient wiring. The environment around you has changed dramatically. Sure, we have glass buildings and smartphones now, but your psychology hasn't changed a bit. Your subconscious still treats status as a literal matter of life and death. And this invisible hierarchy machine is actually running in your mind right now. Just think about what happens the exact moment you walk into a room filled with strangers. Before you even say hello, your brain automatically runs these incredibly fast calculations. Step 1, you assess confidence. Step 2, you measure who is holding the room's attention. Step 3, you gauge influence, like who's actually leading the conversation. And step 4, you instantly identify the respected versus the ignored. You don't do this because you're shallow. You do this because for thousands of years, misreading the social environment could literally cost you your life. Today, the worst that happens is a kind of awkward conversation at a networking event, but your brain is still reacting like a saber-toothed tiger is in the room.
Part 3. The global status economy.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because here is where the story takes a really sharp modern turn. The pacing of our lives has accelerated, and technology has abruptly hijacked this ancient, delicate hierarchy machine. For almost all of human history, status was strictly local. You competed with dozens of people, maybe a few hundred in your village, max. That was the whole shebang. But social media completely mutated this instinct into something utterly unprecedented, transforming our status into a measurable, planetary marketplace. Suddenly, you're no longer comparing yourself just to your neighbors. You're comparing yourself to celebrities, entrepreneurs, athletes, and influencers across the entire globe. Every single day, every hour, sometimes every few minutes.
Part 4. The metrics of significance.
This constant planetary exposure has created this relentless, almost frantic, anxious rhythm in our modern minds. We basically took humanity's oldest, most desperate psychological instincts and we tied them to cold, unfeeling digital validation.
Just look at how clinically our souls have been transformed into data. The deep human need for approval has been reduced to likes, requiring this constant loop of validation. The primal need for influence, it's now measured in followers, creating a never-ending cycle of audience building. And the desperate need for visibility, the need to simply be seen by the tribe, has been outsourced to views, essentially tying our very self-worth to an algorithm. We took the profound desire for significance and we turned it into an endless spreadsheet.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer scale of the problem. 1 million. It's a number we see thrown around super casually online. 1 million followers, 1 million views. But human beings were never psychologically equipped to process the attention of a million strangers. I mean, no way. Our brains are designed for groups of maybe 100 people. So when we engage in this massive, overwhelming scale of modern status anxiety, we actually end up feeling more isolated than ever. We're literally drowning in a sea of quantitative status.
So, this is the exhausting reality of the invisible game we're all forced to play. We're subjected to constant planetary comparison. Our ancient survival instincts are being amplified to an absolutely deafening volume. We're spending enormous amounts of energy competing in algorithmic systems we barely even understand, just trapped in these never-ending validation loops. We're chasing an ever-moving target of significance, and we are completely burning ourselves out in the process.
Part 5. The fear of insignificance. If we peel back all the layers of modern society, past the likes, past the follower counts, past the relentless pursuit of wealth and status, we reach the lonely, incredibly quiet truth at the very bottom of the human heart. The pursuit of power is not about domination, it's not about greed, it is about fear. The endless scrolling, the posting, the desperate curation of our digital lives, it's all a defense mechanism against vulnerability. Power promises security. It promises that we won't be helpless. Humans don't chase power because we love control. We chase it because we are absolutely terrified of powerlessness. And that brings us to the rawest truth of human nature. Without the illusion of power, without the metrics and the status, we're faced with the unbearable silence of our own existence. We use status as a substitute for certainty. We use influence as a substitute for belonging. Because at our core, right beneath the armor of our modern lives, we are terrified of being invisible. We are absolutely terrified that if we stop performing, the world will simply forget we're even here. And so every action, every post, every pursuit of power throughout history, it all boils down to the lonely individuals standing in the middle of a massive, totally indifferent crowd, asking the one question that has haunted humanity from the very beginning: do I matter?